The ion storm rolled across the Kepler wasteland like a living thing, its violet tendrils reaching down from the bruised sky to claw at the rust-colored Earth. Kaelra's scout vessel had been caught in the upper atmosphere when the first wave hit, electromagnetic pulse that fried her navigation systems, her communications array, and every piece of technology she'd relied on to survive this godforsaken human colony world. Now she was plummeting. The crash landing was violent and brutal. Her small craft punched through a rocky ridge and tumbled across the barren landscape, metal screaming against stone. Kaelra's body was thrown hard against the reinforced walls of the cabin. Pain exploded across her ribs, and she tasted the copper of her own blood, violet-tinged, alien, foreign in this hostile atmosphere. When the wreckage finally came to rest, she lay in the twisted metal of her cockpit, gasping for breath, her bioluminescent skin flickering weakly in the darkness. Her left wing was broken, hanging at an unnatural angle. Her communications device was destroyed. The ship's power core was offline, which meant no distress beacon, no hope of rescue before the Valerian predators caught her scent on the wind. The storm outside grew worse. Lightning fractured the sky, and Kaelra forced herself to move. Pain lanced through her side with every breath, but she was a scout of the Velkara Empire, trained to survive, to adapt, to endure. She crawled from the wreckage and stumbled into the tempest, her violet skin glowing dimly as her species' natural bioluminescence activated in distress. That's when she saw it, a massive metal structure in the distance, partially obscured by sheets of rain and dust. A vehicle of some kind. Human. Primitive but solid. It was her only chance. Kaelra reached the semi-truck just as the predator calls echoed across the wasteland, those horrible, hunting screams that made her instinctive bond-sensing organs scream in terror. She wrenched open the passenger door and hauled herself inside, collapsing on the worn bench seat. The interior was warm. A man was asleep in the driver's seat, his head tilted back against a worn leather headrest. He was powerfully built, with dark hair and the kind of scarred, weathered face that spoke of a life lived hard. His arms were corded with muscle, his hands large and calloused. And then her species' ancient senses bloomed to life. Kaelra's breath caught. Her body went rigid. The bond-sensing instinct that her people had evolved over millennia, the ability to recognize soul-matched partners across any distance, in any disguise, erupted inside her like a supernova. It was impossible. Ridiculous. He was human, soft, short-lived, fragile. Her people bonded with warriors, with beings who could survive centuries, who could stand beside you through the vast epics of a Velkara lifespan. Not this sleeping man in a truck on a desolate human world. But her body knew the truth. Her skin hummed with recognition. Every fiber of her being was screaming that this human male was hers, her destined mate, the one consciousness in the entire universe that perfectly aligned with her own soul. The predator calls grew closer. Kaelra gripped the door handle, ready to run, ready to do anything to escape this impossible situation. But her broken wing wouldn't support her, and the storm outside was a wall of fury. She had nowhere else to go. So she stayed, trembling beside this stranger, her bioluminescent skin casting violet light across his sleeping face, and tried to understand why the universe had brought her here. The man stirred in his sleep, his powerful hand reaching out instinctively toward her. Even unconscious, even unaware of what she was, his body recognized the bond. When the predator's claws raked across the side of the truck, scoring deep grooves in the metal, the man's eyes flew open. They were gray as storm clouds, and in them, Kaelra saw something that made her heart stop. Recognition. Not of her species, not yet, but a deep, primal awareness that something had just entered his life that would change everything. "Easy," he said softly, his voice rough from sleep but steady. "Calm." The voice of a man who had faced danger before. "Easy now. Let's get you away from that window." He moved with the economy of motion that comes from combat training. Kaelra recognized it instantly, her scout's eye for tactical awareness catching the details. The way he positioned his body between her and the door, the speed and precision of his movements, the absolute confidence in his own physical capabilities. This was no ordinary human civilian. Outside, the predator shrieked and attacked again, and the man did something that made Kaelra's bond-sensing organs resonate with a feeling that was almost like relief. He pulled a weapon from under the driver's seat, a plasma rifle that definitely wasn't supposed to exist in human civilian hands, and he shot at the predator with the precision of a professional soldier. "What the hell are you?" he asked, not unkindly, not even looking away from the window as he watched for the predator's next move. My name is Kaelra, she whispered, her violet eyes fixed on his profile, on the scar that ran along his jaw, on the capable hands that held that very non-civilian weapon. And I think I'm exactly where I was always supposed to be. The storm raged on outside, but inside the truck, something else had been unleashed, something far more powerful and far more dangerous than lightning. By the time the Valerian predators retreated with the first light of dawn, Kara had already made a critical decision. She wasn't going to tell him about the bond. Not yet. The truck became their shelter as the ion storm continued to batter the wasteland outside. The man, who introduced himself as Ethan Voss, had already assessed her injuries with the clinical efficiency of someone who'd received extensive combat medical training. He'd set her broken wing gently, using supplies from a medical kit that was far too sophisticated for a civilian truck driver. Then he'd helped her to the sleeper cabin, maintaining a careful distance that made her bond-sensing organs ache with frustrated need. "You hurt worse than you're letting on," he said, studying her violet skin with an intensity that made her nervous. "You're kind. Are you a scout?" "Yes," she admitted. There was little point in lying. He clearly had experience with non-human species. "My ship was caught in the ion storm. I crashed." Ethan was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes unreadable. Then, "Your people know you're here?" "No." "My distress beacon is offline. No one knows where I am." He nodded slowly, as if confirming something to himself. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder, more guarded. "Then we have a problem. A Velkara scout, missing from her ship, on a human colony world. That's not going to end well for either of us." "You know about my people," Kaelris said. It wasn't a question. "I know about a lot of things," Ethan replied. He turned away from her, walking to the small window of the sleeper cabin. Outside, the storm continued to rage. "I'm going to tell you something, Kaelra. I'm going to tell you who I really am. And then you're going to have to decide whether you can be trusted to keep that secret." His story came out in fragments over the next 2 days, as the ion storm continued to trap them in the truck. Ethan Voss was not a truck driver. He was or had been a shock trooper for Earth's military, part of a specialized unit called the Pale Guard that had been trained to interface with alien species and serve as humanity's first line of defense against off-world threats. He'd served for 18 years, seen combat on 7 different worlds, and had earned a reputation as one of the most efficient soldiers the Earth Alliance had ever produced. Until he'd refused an order. The order had been simple: eliminate a Velkara diplomatic envoy. The intelligence suggested she was a spy, a threat to human interests. Ethan had been given all the reasons, all the justifications. But when he'd gotten close to her, something had happened. His instincts, the same instincts that had kept him alive through 2 decades of military service, had screamed that she was innocent. He'd killed the man who'd given him the order instead. "I went underground after that," Ethan told her, his voice quiet as the storm hammered against the truck. They were sitting close on the sleeper bunk, close enough that Kaelra could feel his body heat. It was torture. "Got out of the game, took a civilian identity. Been driving this route for 5 years. Quiet. Safe. Until I crashed into your truck," Kaelra said softly. "Until you crashed into my truck," he agreed. He turned to look at her, and his gray eyes were full of something that made her bond-sensing organs sing. "There's something happening between us, Kaelra. You feel it, don't you? I can see it in the way your skin glows when you look at me." She couldn't lie to him. Her people weren't built for deception, especially not with their destined mates. "Yes," she whispered. "There's something. I've been around a lot of alien species," Ethan said. "I know the signs. Bond sensing. Your people recognize their mates." He moved closer, his large hand reaching out to touch her face gently. "Is that what this is? Have you bonded to me?" "My people believe in destiny," Kaelra said, her voice trembling. "We believe that each soul has one perfect complement in the universe. When we meet that person, every part of us recognizes it. It's not a choice. It's everything," Ethan finished. His forehead touched hers, and the sensation was electric, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with the physical. "I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what I am to you, but I know what you're becoming to me. You're becoming everything." It was on the 3rd day of the storm that things changed. The Valerian predators had learned that the truck held prey. They attacked in coordinated waves, and Ethan defended her with a ferocity that left Kaelra breathless. He used weapons he pulled from hidden compartments, moved with lethal precision, and his face took on an expression of grim determination that she recognized from her tactical training, the face of a man who had been born for combat. He was magnificent. The predators finally retreated after he brought down 3 of them with surgical strikes. Ethan was bleeding from a gash on his shoulder where one had gotten close, but he seemed barely aware of the injury. He was looking at her with an intensity that made her skin glow brighter. "I'm not what you thought I was," he said, his voice raw. "I know exactly what you are," Kara replied. She moved closer to him. Despite her broken wing, despite the pain in her ribs, "You're a warrior. You're exactly what my people look for in a bondmate." "I'm dangerous," he said. "So am I," she whispered. When he kissed her, it felt like the culmination of something that had been building since the moment she'd opened her eyes and seen him sleeping in the driver's seat. His hands were gentle despite their strength, cradling her face as if she were something precious. Her bioluminescent skin flared so brightly that the entire sleeper cabin was bathed in violet light. And in that moment, as the ion storm raged outside and 2 species that should never have bonded found themselves locked in an embrace neither wanted to break, Ethan Voss finally understood. He had lost his job, his identity, his entire life, not to escape danger, but to find his way to this moment, to her. The ion storm passed on the 4th day, leaving behind a wasteland scoured clean by electromagnetic fury. Kaelra stood in the open air for the first time since the crash, her broken wing carefully wrapped and supported, her violet skin glowing softly in the pale sunlight. Ethan stood beside her, his hand resting on the small of her back. Even that small contact sent shivers through her bond-sensing organs. "Your people will come looking for you," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. When I don't return to the diplomatic station, they'll send a search team. My crash signature is recorded in the ship's black box. They'll find this location eventually, and they'll find me here," Ethan said quietly. "A human, bonded to one of their scouts, harboring an illegal alien on human territory." Kaelra turned to face him. His gray eyes were distant, troubled. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about the politics of this. Your people have strict laws about fraternization with non-Velkara species. My people will see you as a potential security threat. Both sides will want me. Both sides will want to separate us." He was right, and the thought made Kaelra's bioluminescent skin dim with distress. She had felt him through her bond-sensing organs, had known the moment she touched him that he was her destined mate. But destined mates had been destroyed before when they came from incompatible worlds, incompatible species. "We could run," she said softly. Ethan's laugh was bitter. "I've already run once, Kaelra. I gave up everything, my rank, my identity, my place in my own society, to hide on this wasteland world. And you know what I found? Peace. Quiet. A life without killing." He looked at her. But it was an empty peace. "I was waiting for something without even knowing it. And then you crashed into my truck, and suddenly I understood. I was waiting for you." "So what do we do?" she whispered. "We tell the truth," Ethan said. "When your people come, we tell them exactly what happened. That you bonded to me, that I protected you, that what's between us is real. We let them know that I'm not a threat. That I left the military because I refused to follow immoral orders, because I respected your people even when my own government wanted me to kill them. They may not believe you. Then we handle it together. Bondmates stand together. Isn't that part of your culture?" Kaelra looked at this man, this human who had somehow become her entire universe in the span of 4 days, and felt something crystallize inside her. Love. Fierce, protective, absolute. "Yes," she said. "We do." The Velkara rescue team arrived 26 hours later. 3 sleek spacecraft descended on the wasteland with the precision of a military operation. Kaelra recognized the markings, her own unit. Her commanding officer, Talvex, emerged from the lead ship with a contingent of soldiers, their weapons raised. When they saw her standing beside a human male, their weapons remained drawn. "Kaelra," Talvex said, his deep voice carrying the weight of rank and authority. He was massive, even for Velkara, his scaled skin a deep emerald green that spoke of centuries of life lived in combat. "You're unharmed." "I'm well, Commander," Kaelra replied, staying close to Ethan. "My ship crashed during the ion storm. I was injured." This human provided shelter and medical care. Talvex's expression shifted subtly, a flicker of something that might have been concern or might have been suspicion. "Step away from him." "No," Kaelra said. The reaction was immediate. Weapons raised higher. Soldiers moved closer. Ethan stepped forward, his hands visible and empty, his body relaxed in a posture of non-aggression that Kael'ra recognized as pure tactical brilliance. When he spoke, his voice was calm and deferential without being weak. "Commander Talvex, my name is Ethan Voss. I'm a former military officer with the Earth Alliance. I served the Alliance for 18 years, including operations on multiple off-world colonies." He paused, letting that information settle. "During that time, I developed a deep respect for your people's culture and values. When Scout Kael'ra crashed near my location, I provided shelter and care because it was the right thing to do. Nothing more. He protected me from Valerian predators," Kael'ra added, speaking quickly. "He used military-grade weapons and tactical knowledge. He saved my life." Talvex studied Ethan for a long moment. Then his gaze shifted to Kael'ra, and his eyes widened slightly, a sign that he'd caught what her bond-sensing organs had been broadcasting loud and clear the moment the rescue team arrived. "You've bonded," Talvex said. It was not a question. The silence that fell over the wasteland was absolute. "Yes," Kael'ra confirmed. "He is my destined mate." The soldiers behind Talvex exchanged glances. Bond matings between Velkara and other species were rare but not unheard of. They were, however, politically complicated, especially when one party was a human who had apparently deserted his own military. Talvex lowered his weapon. "Stand down," he ordered his soldiers. Then, to Ethan, "Former shock trooper Voss, you are aware that harboring a Velkara citizen on human colony territory is violation of both human and Velkara law?" "I am," Ethan replied calmly. "And yet you did it anyway." "I did it because she was wounded and in danger." "I would do it again." Talvex's expression was unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was grave. "If Scout Kael'ra claims you as her destined mate, then by Velkara law, you are under the protection of her people and bound by our customs. This means you cannot hide anymore, Voss. You cannot run. You must answer for your past, the military order you refused, the man you killed. There will be consequences." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I understand." He reached out and took Kael'ra's hand, his large fingers intertwining with hers. Her bioluminescent skin flared so brightly that it cast violet shadows across the wasteland. "Whatever comes," he said, "we face it together." The interrogation chamber on the Velkara transport was surprisingly compassionate. Soft lighting, comfortable seating, water for both human and alien physiology. Kael'ra sat beside Ethan as Talvex, now accompanied by a diplomatic liaison named Saran, asked him detailed questions about his past. Ethan answered everything honestly. He described his 18 years of military service, the nations he'd defended, the wars he'd fought. He talked about his training, his kills, the weight of the things he'd done in the name of national security. And then he came to the order that had changed everything. "The Velkara envoy's name was Valera," Ethan said, his voice steady but his hand gripping Kael'ra's tightly. "She was supposed to be a spy. I was given intelligence, documentation, everything. But when I found her, something was wrong. My instincts, the ones that had kept me alive through 2 decades of warfare, told me she was innocent. I refused the order. My superior officer, Colonel Vex, gave me an ultimatum: execute her or be executed myself. And you killed him instead," Saran said. "It wasn't an accusation, simply a statement of fact." "I did. And then I contacted Valera, told her to flee, and went underground myself." Talvex leaned forward. "Do you know what happened to Valera?" Ethan shook his head. "She's the current trade ambassador between our people and Earth," Talvex said. "She established the entire framework for peaceful commerce between our species. Thousands of lives have been improved because of her work. Yours included." The impact of that statement hung in the air. Kael'ra felt Ethan's hand tighten around hers. She squeezed back gently, trying to tell him, "You were on the right side of history, even if you couldn't have known it at the time." "Your refusal to execute an innocent being shows integrity," Saran said carefully. "It shows you have respect for life that transcends species boundaries. That's rare in human military culture." "I was tired of killing," Ethan said simply. "I was tired of being a weapon. And yet you defended Scout Kael'ra against the Valerian predators," Talvex observed. "You used your training, your knowledge of combat, to protect one of our people." "That was different," Ethan said. "That was protecting someone He paused, looking at Kaelra. Someone who mattered to me. Destined mates, Saran said, and there was something almost wistful in the diplomat's voice. In all my years of interspecies relations, I've rarely witnessed a bond between human and Velkara. It's beautiful, but complicated. Very complicated, Talvex agreed. He stood and moved to the window, looking out at the stars visible from the transport's viewport. Former shock trooper Voss, I need to be direct with you. What you did, refusing an order, killing your superior officer, those actions place you in a precarious legal situation. The Earth Alliance will demand your extradition. They will want to try you for murder. I know, Ethan said. However, Talvex continued, Scout Kaelra's claim of bondmateship places you under Velkara protection. Our laws supersede Earth Alliance jurisdiction in this matter. You are now subject to our legal processes, our justice system. Will I be executed? Ethan asked, his voice calm. That depends, Talvex said, turning back to face him. It depends on whether you're willing to testify about what actually happened. To be deposed by human authorities as well as our own. To open yourself completely to scrutiny. Yes, Ethan said immediately. Kaelra looked at him, understanding what he was agreeing to, a complete loss of privacy, a full exposure of everything he'd hidden for 5 years. He was choosing that, choosing vulnerability, choosing her people's justice system over his own, because the alternative was losing her. There's something else, Kaelra said softly, looking at Talvex. I need to tell you what I observed about him. As a scout, as someone trained in tactical assessment. Speak, Talvex said. Everything he told you about the Valerian attacks, he could have killed those creatures with minimal effort and maximum strategy. Instead, he protected me first. His own survival was secondary. That's not the pattern of a soldier trained to maximize casualties and minimize personal risk. That's the pattern of a protector. Someone who has evolved beyond the need to be a weapon. Someone who chooses to be a warrior only when necessary and only to defend what matters. Talvex's expression softened fractionally. Scout Kaelra, your bond-sensing organs are clouding your judgment. No, Kaelra said firmly. My bond-sensing organs are giving me data that my military training confirms. He is telling the truth. He is exactly who he claims to be, a warrior who learned to value peace. The testimony took 3 weeks. Ethan spoke to legal representatives from both the Velkara Empire and the Earth Alliance. He detailed everything, answered every question, submitted to every test and scan the Velkara could devise to verify his truthfulness. And through it all, Kaelra was beside him, her bioluminescent skin steady and strong, her presence a constant reassurance. On the 21st day, Talvex called them both to the diplomatic chamber. The Velkara Council has reached a decision, the commander announced. Former shock trooper Ethan Voss, you are acquitted of all charges related to the death of Colonel Vex. Our investigation confirmed that you acted in defense of an innocent being. That your refusal to kill and your subsequent actions saved the life of Valera, who has become one of the most important figures in interspecies relations, only strengthens this judgment. Ethan's hand tightened around Kaelra's. However, Talvex continued, the Earth Alliance has issued a warrant for your arrest on charges of murder and desertion. They are requesting extradition. As you are now bonded mate to a Velkara citizen, you have the right to request asylum within Velkara space. Ethan and Kaelra exchanged glances. I request asylum, Ethan said. Granted, Talvex confirmed. You will be transported to the Velkara home world where you will continue to live under our protection. Your bondmate will be with you. The Earth Alliance will be informed that any attempts to retrieve you will be considered an act of war. The finality of it hit Ethan all at once. He would never return to Earth, never walk under that sky again, never set foot in his own world. But when he looked at Kaelra, at her violet skin glowing with quiet joy, at her eyes reflecting the light of the stars beyond the viewport, he realized he had already made that choice the moment he led her into his truck. Thank you, he said to Talvex. The commander nodded. Take care of her, Voss. A destined mate is a rare gift. The universe has chosen you for a reason. The Velkara home world was nothing like Earth. The sky was a deep crimson, shot through with bands of blue aurora that shifted and danced across the atmosphere. The architecture was organic, grown rather than built, towering spires of what looked like crystalline coral rising from a landscape of bioluminescent moss. Flying creatures of impossible beauty wheeled through the air, their wings catching the light from the city's many glowing structures. Kaora held Ethan's hand as they walked through the main plaza of Velcressa, the capital city. Hundreds of her people moved around them, and every one of them reacted the same way: surprise, curiosity, and then a kind of respectful acknowledgement when they realized what Ethan was: a human, bonded to one of their own. "They're staring," Ethan said softly. He was wearing the formal clothes Kaora had chosen for him, soft, adaptive fabric that responded to temperature and movement, dyed in shades of deep blue and silver. He looked every inch the warrior consort of a Velkara scout. "Yes," Kaora said without embarrassment. "You're fascinating to them. A human who has chosen our world. A warrior who chose peace. A bondmate to one of the most respected scouts in the Empire. I still don't fully believe this," Ethan said, stopping to look out at the city. "A month ago, I was driving a truck on a dead-end route into human colonies, hiding from my own people. Now I'm on an alien world, bonded to a woman who can sense my soul." Kaora turned to face him. In this light, with the bioluminescent moss casting soft shadows across his features, he looked almost ethereal, almost like he belonged here. "A month ago, I was a lonely scout, convinced that my destined mate didn't exist," she said softly. "That I would spend my entire long life alone. And then a storm brought you to me." Ethan lifted his hand and touched her face gently. Even after weeks of intimate contact, the touch still sent shivers through her bond-sensing organs. Some bonds, she was learning, never grew routine. Some bonds only deepen with time. "I love you," he said. The human phrase translated imperfectly into their shared language, but the meaning unmistakable. "I know," Kaora whispered. "My organs have been telling me for weeks. Your heartbeat changes when you look at me. Your breathing patterns shift. Your pupils dilate. All the biological markers of what your people call love." "Does it work both ways?" Ethan asked. "My people don't have a word for love," Kaora said. "We have a word for bond recognition, for destined mates, for soul alignment. But love..." She paused, searching for the right words. "Love is something you've taught me. Something I'm learning to feel in your human way, even though I was already feeling it in my Velkara way from the moment I sensed you in that truck." Ethan kissed her then, long and slow, in the middle of the plaza where thousands of her people could see. And instead of judgment or disapproval, what Kaora felt through her bond-sensing organs was a collective sense of wonder from the crowd. A recognition that what stood before them, a Velkara woman and a human man, bonded across the vast distances between their species, was something sacred. A promise that the worlds could learn to live together. 6 months later, Ethan stood in a training facility on the outskirts of Velcressa, teaching a group of Velkara military trainees advanced tactical combat. He had been offered the position by Talvex, who recognized that a soldier of his skill and experience could help strengthen the Velkara defensive capabilities. Ethan had initially refused. He had given up being a warrior, he told the commander. But Kaora had convinced him otherwise. "You're not being asked to wage war," she'd said. "You're being asked to teach peacekeepers how to protect what matters. That's different. That's honorable." Now, watching his students, fierce Velkara warriors in their prime, execute the defensive maneuvers he'd taught them, Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced since leaving Earth, a sense of purpose that didn't come from violence, but from growth. The training session ended, and he walked back to the residential complex where he and Kaora lived. Their quarters were unusual, adapted for both human and Velkara physiology, with a balance of artificial gravity for his sake and the gentle bioluminescence that his mate needed to thrive. Kaora was waiting for him on the wide observation platform that overlooked the city. She was pregnant. 3 months along, with a child that would be half human, half Velkara, a true bridge between worlds. The medical scans had shown that the hybrid would survive, would thrive even. Their child would be something new, something neither species had created before. "How was training?" Kaora asked, resting her hand on her subtly swelling abdomen. "Good," Ethan replied, coming to stand beside her. He placed his hand over hers, feeling the slight flutter of movement within. "Their child. The students are progressing faster than I expected. That's because they're learning from someone who truly understands warfare, but has transcended its need," Kaora said. "Your people have a saying, those who have seen the worst of war understand peace most deeply." Ethan smiled and kissed the top of her head. "Your people are starting to sound like philosophers." "We've had 10,000 years to develop philosophy," Kaora replied with a hint of amusement. "But I suppose we're learning new things from your people, too." Humans move so quickly through your lives, but with such intensity. You taught me that even a brief moment can be filled with meaning. They stood together as the sun set behind the distant mountains, casting long shadows across the city. The aurora above intensified, blues and greens dancing across the crimson sky, and Ethan realized that somewhere along the way, this alien world had become home. He'd lost so much to be here. His world, his identity, his entire species and culture. But standing beside his destined mate, with their unborn child stirring beneath his hand, Ethan Voss understood that the universe had not taken things from him. It had been making room. Room for a storm-trapped pilot and a lonely truck driver to find each other. Room for a human warrior and a Velkara scout to become soulmates. Room for their love to create something entirely new, a being that embodied both worlds, that proved that connection transcended the boundaries of species and biology. As the stars began to emerge overhead, Kaelra leaned against him, her bioluminescent skin creating a soft violet aura that merged with the city lights. And Ethan held her, this alien woman who would become his everything, and thought about how the most dangerous storms often bring the greatest gifts. All it takes is the courage to let them in.